Well, I came to the door one day, she had given me a word, and I said the first letter. They knocked on the door, so I stopped. And she talked to this person for a little while. And then she closed the door and said, okay, Larry. Well, I said that first letter again. She said, you're out. With wind. On Saturday mornings, we'd go to Dickens, you know, buy what groceries we needed, like bread and flour and flavoring and that kind of stuff, you know, what we didn't have on hand at home. And then Saturday afternoon, well, while the sun was up, we worked. Well, I never did make the drawing or never did make any of those movies. But we did come down on Saturday night sometimes and bring our eggs from Mr. McDaniel's store down here and sell them. I enjoyed my years growing up on the farm. I mean, I wouldn't take $1 million for the experience, but I wouldn't give a dime to go back. Thank you.
Organized, who's going to tell what? I didn't make the meeting, so I don't know. I lived in the country too, and I rode the bus into town, and riding the bus was an experience too. As you recall, the older students, they would call it bullying now, but we survived. And one of the things that we did do was, those of us that played ball, athletics, well, we'd ride in the morning, and then we wouldn't have a place to stay until the ball game time. So Connie Boss had an aunt that Miss Richardson that lived here in town, and so all the girls would pile in, and we had peanut butter sandwiches, and she was very gracious, but that was what we would do. Our carefree days were just wonderful, I thought. The 50s, you know, we had cheap gas. You could, 25 cents a gallon, to drive everywhere when you were able to start dating and rock and roll, and no wars to worry about. And we were able to go to college. I remember the college tuition, my first semester was $25. Can you imagine that? But anyway, I'm going to tell a little bit about the high school. When we were in the 9th grade, I think I maybe told this before, we had a business teacher, and he said, communism in theory is a good policy. Well, we took that to mean that he was a communist. That was in the Cold War and everything. So we went to the school board and, you know, and told us we had a communist for a teacher. Anyway, he, some of our dads were on the school board and didn't really believe it really either. But he left the next year. I don't think he was fired though. But and then we had the junior senior banquet. Now we wanted to have a dance. We wanted to have a prom, and my dad was on the school board, a staunch Baptist, and he says, "I'm voting against having a dance." He said, "The only place you can use dancing after you graduate at a honky-tonk." And he said, so we had the junior senior banquet. Well, our theme was Moonlight and Roses, and they let us out of school to go out all over town and gather roses with this, decorate the gym upstairs, and we draped the ceiling, and oh, it was beautiful. Well, Miss Wheeler called, and she said, "You tell those kids to stay out of my damn climbers." But anyway, we decorated the upstairs, and you know it was really pretty, wasn't it?
Yes, and we got Dr. Stubbs. Dr. Stubbs had beautiful running red roses in his house at that time. I think we killed them. He said we could have
fortunate to have Greta, who was, well, you're your first-year teacher that year, first-year teacher. Well, our sponsor actually was Anna Grace Hope. You know, it's a good civics teacher that prepared us all for college. Well, she was very smart. She did not go on our senior trip. But Greta graciously agreed, and we had a coach to go with us also. And anyway, it was a train trip to Colorado. And we stopped in every little town between here and Colorado Springs. But when we got there, it was in May, and it started snowing, you know, up there early too. And we were snowbound in a hotel, and we couldn't go on all the little trips. And you can imagine the mischievousness that went on. And we're lucky that no one got fired, Greta, and we all graduated, and no one got fired, I don't think. Anyway, but we had a wonderful time in Holland High School. Some of us met the mate of our life, and several couples that dated, you know, in high school, and have celebrated the 50th anniversary. So we had a fun time, I thought, in high school.
Now I know why I didn't get to go on a senior trip. They wouldn't let us leave Texas. Well, I'm kind of going to talk about downtown Sanger. The first thing that I think of in Sanger is you close your eyes and you go down 5th Street, and all of the trees were painted white. I don't know if y'all remember that or not, but I always thought that was so pretty that our town was lined with white trees. Then when you come downtown, Bolivar Street, you look down and you see two drugstores, a movie theater, lots of grocery stores. There was about 3 at least at one time, and I think they ended up 4. And we had a garage where you work on your car, and look over at the park, and I'll never forget, because the park was my favorite place, because I had to walk through there to go home every day and walk to school every day. So the park was always my favorite. And we had a fish pond and had to go fish in it and everything. Of course, now we have a gazebo. Then we had the Smith, General's store and the bank. And Dr. Chapman's office was right down on Bolivar Street. And I always remembered his wife driving a little Ford convertible. She always looked so cute. It had the straw hat on and everything. And I miss especially the drugstore. I wish we had another drugstore where we could go in and have coffee, you know. Anyway. That's it.
Well, I was going to talk about Highway 35. That was built in the 50s, and we lived on what was the old 77 highway. They had to move our house to have enough area for 35. And we had a good time living on 77 because right before they built 35, you know, that was just a 2-lane highway going to Dallas, and it was fairly busy. But as kids, we had to do the lawn. My mother had asthma all the time, and Daddy was busy in the field, so it kind of fell to us kids. And we felt really deprived because we did not have a power lawnmower. So we got our pony. And we tied that lawnmower up to that pony, and we was gonna have a power lawnmower. But the pony got scared. And it ran down that highway with cars coming and going, and that lawnmower went in a million pieces. You didn't know there were so many pieces in a little old push lawnmower. And then there was the thought of Daddy coming home. And he was gonna kill us. But he didn't. I don't know what happened to him, but he didn't. He went to town and he bought us another push mower. No power mower, but we didn't try putting our pony to the lawnmower anymore either. But anyway, we had, while the 35 was being built, we had to move. And we moved over on a place that Daddy owned east of town, which is now under the lake. And the boys loved it out there. There's a lot of post oak trees everywhere, and it had 3 or 4 tanks on it, stock tanks, and they loved it over there. And I hated it because there was no running water in the house. There was no bathrooms in the house. And I was in high school, and there was nothing, any conveniences in there. We had to heat our water and carry water and all of that, so I hated living over there. And it was about maybe a fourth of a mile from where we lived down to the road that went to Paul Point. And we would have to walk down there to catch the bus. Actually, the bus was not supposed to come down there, but they did. And then turn around right there and then come back. And every time Mother got out in the car, she'd get stuck over there. So she didn't like to get out of the car, so we'd have to walk that fourth of a mile, whether it was raining or whatever. So I did not enjoy living over there, and it was a good thing we didn't have to live there very long. I think it was 2 or 3 months, but it seemed very long. But now, when I think about that, I think, oh my goodness, how would we have ever put up with all the traffic that's on 35 now, on that little 2-lane highway? But the army trucks used to come by there, just a whole line of them, and we'd stand out in the front and just wave at those guys. I bet they thought we were really cute. Anyway, that was kind of what the only entertainment we had. We did have work and chores and things like that, and when we were in the early grades, there was a boy that came to visit his grandparents, the Bells, that lived across the road from us. And Mother just, she says, you've got chores to do and you've got to work. So he came over one day to play with Clyde, and so Mother handed him a hoe, and she says, here, you can help him hoe out the flower bed. But he never came back. He never came back to play anymore. So anyway, it was kind of fun growing up, and for the ones of you that didn't have brothers to get in trouble with, well, I'm sorry, because we really had a lot of fun as kids, because we sold eggs to the grocery store, but we sold black-eyed peas too when they were in season, because Daddy always planted a lot of black-eyed peas. And we'd sell them to the grocery store, and Mother sent Fred and I over to pick some more peas because they didn't quite have enough for a bushel. And we got over there looking at, oh my goodness, those rows were long. And that dirt sure was nice, soft dirt, so we got to playing. And we were playing and playing in that soft dirt. And we could hear Mother hollering from the house, come on, come on. And we knew we didn't have time to pick those peas. So we put a whole lot of dirt in the bottom of the bucket. And then we just got some peas and stuck them on top. And we took that bucket into the house and slipped it in. Because we knew we'd be in bad trouble if they caught us. So, getting in things like that was always kind of fun now. It wasn't as much fun then, but when you have somebody else to get in trouble with you, it's not so bad. And I only had to pick cotton one time. And Chloe and Joy Allen wanted to come and pick cotton, so I went to the field to pick cotton with them. So the next day, I think I picked 40 pounds all day long. And the next day, I asked my dad, I said, do I need to go pick cotton again today? And he said, no, you drink more water than you're worth. So I said, okay. So anyway, I got to stay in the house most of the time because we had field hands, anywhere from 10 to 20 field hands to cook for. And if I didn't help Mother, then Daddy'd have to hire somebody to help her. So I kind of grew up just cooking and cleaning the house and so forth like that. So on the farm, and the boys did most of the outside work. That's kind of the way I grew up.
Larry, I remember you said you didn't want to go to school.
Yeah.
Every morning we'd stop the bus and we'd have to let your mother persuade you. Sometimes she'd drag you around there and pick you up and put you in the shower. But he cried every day.
I did.
I remember when I started school, 54, Frances Chapman was my teacher. And about half of our class cried, you know, for like an hour in the morning. And then after lunch, they would have us lay our heads on the desk, and that same group would cry. And so what she would do, she would pick the kids up and sit down at her desk, and she would just kind of rock them and, you know, soothe them, and then have them go sit back down, and they would be fine. But it's so different now because kids are so much, I don't know if it's more social or if they're used to being away from their parents, but oh my gosh, we had a bunch of crybabies in my class. I was happy to be there.
You know, my first grade teacher was Miss Ellen Seals, and I think back now, you know, I feel sorry for her. You know, that was put up with those kids. After that first year, things go all right.
I think we were all fortunate, most of us in the 50s. We had the same core of teachers, grades 1 through 6. And, you know, we had either Miss Alene, first grade, Miss Burgess, second grade, Miss Marguerite Riggs, third grade, and fourth grade, Miss Middick, and Kathleen Chill. She used to call herself Vino Miss Kathleen, you know, and then Miss Debbie Burroughs. And they were all really hard-nosed teachers, and I think we all got a good foundation.
They taught me and then they taught my kids. Because Joe said she could remember one day Miss Kathleen came in and she said, you know what? She said, I thought there was a man in my house last night. And she said, I got up and I looked everywhere and darn it, I couldn't find him.
You were talking about the teachers when Robbie was in the third grade. Miss Marguerite, that was the year she lost her mother, and then she had pneumonia. She was out of school a lot. And he come home and says, I sure will be glad when I get in Miss Winnie's class, says she's smiling. I never saw that woman smiling. But that and where he thought she smiled, I don't know.
You know what? I don't remember her smiling either.
I don't know where it came from. I don't know where it came from with that idea.
Did Ms. Winnie smile? I don't remember her smile.
Miss Winnie, I think that's where I learned. We started cursive writing, and she had to read cursive writing, and I tried so hard to copy her cursive writing. I wanted it to look just perfect like hers did. I tried hard to do it.
Well, if you remember, nearly all those teachers wrote the same. You know, they made their letters like those that were up on the board.
Yes.
You know, and nearly any of them, their writing was the same.
And did you know that's, I taught cursive in third grade when I taught third grade. But now, sixth graders can't even write in cursive. I was absolutely flabbergasted when I went to sub a couple of years ago, and I was writing in cursive on the board, and they couldn't read it. Now, is that something? That's what computers is doing.
I sent a letter to a teenage girl, a friend of ours' daughter, and she had to call her mother. Well, she sent her mother the letter and said, "Can you read it to me?" She couldn't read cursive. I guess they don't teach it.
Flabbergasted me.
Didn't Miss Winnie win a trip to Europe? Winnie Minnick? See, I can remember her winning a trip, a road trip to Europe.
Oh, that. It was, it's amazing, when I was teaching in Mint, she got on the school board. so
She
I
took
got
us to
see
San Antonio.
her. I don't know why, but I used to run.
Wow, I haven't been there since. So, I don't think round.
Well, we teach
She's talking about one,
Yeah, that ruler.
when that ruler, how many she broke, a few boys standing there.
She was just like a fixture in the building, you know, she was gonna be there, so you had to accept her. But anyway. And Miss Ida Grace, all one length of the building on the way down. And I don't remember why. I must have done something to aggravate her. That hurt.
She was famous for, she would get on to you in class, but then when class was over, she would stand by the door
She did.
and she would capture you on the way out and she would hug you and, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you know, I didn't mean that." But in the meantime, she's embarrassed you to death. Yeah.
That was embarrassing. Everybody in the world saw me being drugged out.
Like Miss Nick Burns, remember Buddy Hines, took a few classes of speech from her. That was interesting. She did teach speech.
She was sold on speech. I tell you, I just quaked in my shoes to have to get up in front of the class and say a poem that I memorized or something. I think, whatever. She was always wanting to do stuff like that.
Miss Marguerite was known for the art. Y'all remember that?
Yes.
I made a C, and I thought I was gonna die, and my parents were gonna die. I said, I can't draw.
Somebody told me Virgin, it was Miss George.
She married.
Right. It was Miss
Well, her
George.
husband
Yeah,
died.
George.
Miss George, I know what.
Yeah, Bill died, Bill George died the year that we were in second grade.
Right, I mean,
She tried to change me from being left-handed. I went home and told my mother, she said, "Leave him like he is, he's gonna be left-handed." But she really tried.
some of you didn't get into higher education, the second floors. We did, we made it to higher education. Fourth grade.
I can remember going up to the top floor one time. We gave a little play, and we did this thing where this little woman, the girl, Mr. Meany came in to take her house away because they couldn't pay the rent, remember? And she said, "I can't pay the rent." And he said, "You must pay the rent." Put you out of your house. Oh, put you out of your house. And then this guy comes in, the Savior. came in and said, "I'll pay the rent." We did that on the stage when we were third grade, I guess. I mean, but to get to go up on the top floor of that building, to me, that was awesome. I'd never been up there before.
Was the gym there?
No, that was before, that was in the old three-story building, where it had the steps up the sides. Steps.
It had
High
a
school.
High school.
Well, actually, which
High
was,
school,
That was really
library, and the
higher
auditorium was up there.
yeah,
The auditorium was on the fourth floor, what?
yeah, the grade school was on the basement, 1, 2, 3 was on the basement, the lunchroom, and then this, I guess the second floor you call it, that was
Fourth
fourth,
through
fifth,
the eighth,
and
third,
sixth, eighth,
Yeah.
whatever. In high school,
got the third floor.
and then the auditorium. Man, that was a neat little building. Bad.
Do any of y'all remember the high school boys putting Mr. Banks' car, his little Volkswagen, in the school? Any of y'all remember that? They took it in from the west end, you know, it had those double doors, and the boys picked his little Volkswagen up, which was a big deal, you know, to us in the early 60s, I guess. Anyway, they pushed that car, and they pushed it back past the principal's office, and you know, the girls' bathroom was right here, and then the ramp went down, and they pushed that car down in that ramp. And then all the boys scattered. And I think, if I remember correctly, Mr. Banks saw his car go by.
Well, we used for Mr. J.W. Buckler, his first year teaching was when we were seniors, I think. Was it? We teased that man, we hide his grade book. We did, I'll change the grades in the grade book. And then some boys even get his pickup, take his little wooden podium that he had, put it in the back of his pickup and drive off with it.
I used to throw paper, throw paper out his window so he'd make me go get it. Well, that's great. You know, I wouldn't come back.
But we really did tease him a lot. He gets so mad, his face had turned so red.
Yeah, he told, I think it was George Wells one day, we had a pretty big, it was bookkeeping, and I think it was George he got onto, and he said, "Wells, get your chair and take it outside." And he took his chair outside and he left. But Mr. Buckler, he was really a nice guy, and Bobby and a couple of the other guys on days they really didn't want to do anything. Mr. Buckler's son, Johnny, was very young at the time. And
He was proud of it.
yeah. They'd say, "Mr. Buckler, how's little Johnny doing?" Well, you didn't have to do anything the rest of the class. Mr. Buckler would start talking about what little Johnny was doing now, you know, and took his first steps or whatever.
I remember one year, Betty and I were taking class under Mr. Cook. We learned every bush tree in town. We did. We learned how to spell it and everything. Made biology and college easy.
You never had a bookkeeping and typing teacher like Miss Kelly Miller.
Yes, we did. She was okay.
And typing on that typewriter, old Underwood typewriter, that you couldn't even see the keys.
We still had those when I was in college. Yeah.
A lot of the carriages, when you hit it like that, the carriage would shoot across.
We had one electric typewriter, and Billy Jack McReynolds came in one day, and we were having bookkeeping, and I don't remember now why, he wanted to borrow this typewriter. So he picked it up, and Mr. Buckley said, "Be sure and drop that on your way out," and he did. It was an accident, he stumbled or something, and that typewriter just went flying. And the rest of us are like, well, great, you know, 'cause we only had one electric one. All the others were old and there were no letters on the keys.
So that reminds me, I was talking to my oldest granddaughter. I was telling her about the typewriter that I had. She says, a typewriter, what's that? And I said, well, I've got one here now, so next time you're here, I'll get it out and show it to you. She says, I'd like to see it. Of course, she was little, they had computers. From the time she was big enough to crawl up the chair and peck on them. But that's all she's ever known. She didn't know there was such thing as a typewriter.
I was talking to somebody here a few days ago about typewriter, and their daughter or whatever was standing there, and we was talking about these old manual typewriters, you know, and the girl said, "What's a manual typewriter?" Now, that's the one you have to touch like this to print.
That's what mine is. The fact is, it's a left hand, it's got a left-hand carriage on it.
Yeah.
It's very unusual because normally you tend to throw this one has a carriage, you throw it that way. Took me a long time to get where I could type on it pretty good. But you know, learning on a manual, it took me a long time to get to where I could type on electric because I was always hitting the key too hard. Then go punch the letter about 15 times. Again, time marches on.
But those old Underwood typewriters, they were bought in the early 30s, I think. And you all used them in the 60s, didn't you?
Yep.
50s and 60s.
Where did y'all buy clothes?
Have the catalog. That reminds me of something. I can remember Sears Roebuck catalog. Oh, we get one, and I would look at it. This was before school started. And I would just drool over the dresses. They were mostly fall-colored plaid. You know, and these little collars and little rough sleeve, or little three-quarter. And then they always got the sash, you know, down. And I just drool over those dresses and I never get one.
Was Jess Smith there when y'all were growing up?
Mom sewed for us, most time, and, you know, we just handed down. I never did that, handed down, so I never did that during clothes, different outfits also. And, but, yeah, Miss Kim sewed for us, too.
Maddie Mae's bookstore.
Yeah.
Did you ever get your white shirt? Larry, did you ever get your white shirt with the collar turned up?
Yeah.
Did your mom make it or did you buy it?
Yeah, she bought it.
Yeah, his notes did so really, really well.
Yeah.
And all his shirts were homemade, and everything. All the time he's in grade school, you know
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
But she really
She
so.
says that all over.
My mother made everything. My mother made everything too. There was a fad in high school of a mouton coats. Y'all remember the mouton coats?
Oh, I still got mine.
Anyway, it was $50 and see, mother had made everything for me, and she was a good seamstress too, you know. So I never went without clothes. She'd stay up all night to finish a dress for me. But anyway, I threw a fit for a mouton coat. I said, everybody's getting a mouton coat, and I said, I want one. Anyway, we really couldn't afford it, I don't think, but I got my mouton coat, and the next year they were out of fashion. And I still have mine too. Christy used, well, I used it when I taught them economics to show, you know, things from the past, and I still have it today. And, Christy uses it over at college. So
Well, Charlene and I had to share one. We'd say, this time you wear it, next time I wear it. You know, so we had to plan when we were going to wear the mouton coats.
much wiser than the rest of us.
Here, a few years ago, when we had our 50th reunion, I had to make a trip up to Walmart to get me a pair of pants, about a couple inches longer than I usually buy, and white short, shirt, right on the float in.
Oh, yeah, that was when we had the rocking chairs and,
Yeah.
and the big clock, rock around clock. It's on a trailer, and I was got in my Elvis costume, pretending to be Elvis. I wasn't very good imitator. I didn't try to sing.
But I started asking, does anybody remember when they have the Halloween carnival, or not carnival, kind of pageant, carnival, and then crown the Halloween king and queen?
That's good.
I remember
Well,
that
they
in
didn't,
the
they
old
evidently
gym
quit
barn.
before we got there. I remember that.
No, they did it for several years.
Yeah,
Princess, right, had all the princesses.
yeah.
I think I was one there. Something new. I got bit. But I was in the 40s, and I don't remember in the 50s at all.
Oh, I have to tell you something funny about that. One year Tootsie was the announcer, and Billy Burt Mundy, they always called me Billy Burt, and the way they were supposed to say their name was Billy of the House of Mundy. Well, the Tootsie said Billy of the House of Burt.
Yeah, they would decorate the halls and everything.
And then they have it on the park.
Right in those schools.
What I remember, they had it on the park. One of the, where that
After the
gold
gym
fish
burn.
pond, somebody was talking about it.
There's a picture of that in our new book,
Yes.
so.
They had it in the gym, in the old gym, you know, the gym that burned. They had it there, but then after it burned, you know, they had it out on the park.
Okay, that's what I remember.
1948, they had it on the park because the gym had burned in January.
But then they had it in
Somebody
50,
remembered that.
they had it in 54.
That was different. You mean the queen?
Yeah.
No, that was the same thing.
Remember,
So,
we used to have the Sanger Carnival in the late summer, and we choose a queen and king by getting money for boats. Anyway, that was what went on in the Sanger Carnival. They didn't have anything to do with school, though. That was something different. That was our entertainment. We were all good entertainment. To be a small, or we made our own, get in trouble.
You were talking about 35 being built. We lived across 35 when I was a little kid. And Joe Spratt, he lived this side of the highway. When we were friends, he was a year younger than me, I think. Excuse me. And he'd come play, well, and he'd sometimes stay late, you know, so it'd be dark when he's coming back. And I think then his dad worked for the railroad. Yeah. And so he had no railroad lantern. So when he'd come back across highway, well, he'd be carrying that lantern. And he'd be running along, you know, up and down, you know, how that highway is. And that lantern would be swinging with his Trailways bus stopped out there. One night I thought he was flagging them down. And he just chewed Joe out. I said, don't you do that no more.
And y'all were talking about Miss Marguerite, and of course I lived right across the street from her, and Bobby and Kenny and Doug would walk to school every morning. And I remember my mother always used to say, oh, that little Bobby Payne's so cute, I wish he was my little boy. You know, little did we know, but anyway, Kenny and Doug, they were always picking on him. You know, they'd throw rocks at him and, you know, hit him. Well, if Miss Marguerite saw it, she would come out there and she'd get Bobby in the car and she'd drive him to school. And she would just chew Kenny and Doug out for picking on him.
Me, that's just the way of life. I mean, that's what happened. You just deal with it.
Just accepted to be the youngest.
Yeah.
Roseanne, you were actually the middle child. I always heard the middle child.
The middle, I was the middle and the oldest and the youngest and, depending on which way you look at it.
You're talking about the boys? I didn't ever remember you being there.
Oh, was I invisible? I tried to be invisible when boys came trucking through. I got so tired of them.
What order were your brothers? What order of birth were they?
All the boys were the oldest. Thomas was the oldest, and Lee Jr. and Don. And Don and I were close in age. And so I followed him around as long as he allowed it. And he was pretty good to me. He let me follow him around for a long time. And we played. I mean, whatever he was doing, I tried to be mixing right in with him. He was my hero and protector and whatever. He took care of his baby sister.
You know, I have to listen to all these comments that are very interesting. I'm just sitting here thinking, about the time I quit teaching and went into a different life, they started teaching in the public schools things about self-esteem and how to make kids feel good about themselves and all that. And you know, I think I was robbed. Because when I was going to school, they didn't care. They really didn't. And you either got it or you didn't get it. And you're talking about Miss Holt hugging me? That woman never hugged me.
She never hugged me.
So I feel really, because I know my self-esteem's not what it should be. It could be from my elementary time. Miss Nickney Burris, yeah, talk to her about something.
She was something else.
I thought you said Miss Ellie that you moved every day.
Me?
Did you tell me?
I didn't tell you that. She was the only one that had a little bit of a sense of humor. You know? No, I didn't tell you that.
When I told Jack that what the program's gonna be tonight, he said, "Man, I feel old." But when we were in high school, it was so different because it was during the war. And the football boys rode in the back of a pickup to a ball game, and the pep squad girls just went in their own cars or they didn't go. And we marched every day. We bought, and I still have mine, we bought the stamp, where you put the stamps in. One.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, we bought those. And it was just a whole different world from what others went through.
No,
Now, do you remember the old bus that had you had one right down the center, and then on each side, and you had to crank those old windows to crank them down?
But I want to tell you about Coach Davis was our coach when we were in high school. And Jack, tell them about your experience with Coach Davis.
The best one.
The only time you got to work in high school.
Carl Hood, Archie Kelly, and I rode the same bus, and so J.B. Davis drove our school bus, and so he picked us up that morning. We thought we were his favorite kid. So he told us he's going to see superintendent that day. So H.O. Harris had to be somewhere else. And we said, "Oh, Coach, let's play hooky then." he smiled and all. Well, we thought that was an okay. So, when we got off the school bus, we was gonna walking over to Dave Phillips and drove down the highway, going back to Ballard. He's up and up to, he waved at us. I thought, no, okay. We came back the next day, and I'm telling you what, he tanned our bud. That's the only whipping I ever got in school. He wouldn't give us 10 licks. About the first 4 wasn't too bad. That fifth one got us stinging. Then he went to beat busted blisters in. Every time you hit our chalk, you run around the table. I didn't go home and tell my dad I got a whipping.
You would have got another one, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it would have been rough then.
Well, I have to tell one on Billy Ed. He was my high school basketball coach. And
Don't be like Nancy, don't make it.
okay, I promise. But away games, we had to wear these wonderful warm-up suits that the school bought for us. And remember how big those things were? I mean, the guys would have been swallowed in them. They were so big. And we would wear belts around to keep them up. And we just hated them. But when we had games in Sanger, after our game, we always stayed for the boys' game. And Coach always told us we had to wear dresses or skirts. We had to look nice. Well, some of us girls got together and it was cold. We just decided we were going to wear pants after the game. So after the ball game, we all went downstairs and went in the ladies' restroom and we changed into our pants. And we walked back up in that gym. And he saw us and he came over there and he said, y'all want to run those bleachers all day tomorrow, you just keep those pants on. And I mean, all of us went back down and we'd all brought dresses or skirts or something. And we weren't in those pants for about 10 minutes because he liked to run us up and down those bleachers anyway. And we knew we were never going to get out.
I think she made it up.
Well, we had a big to-do when we were seniors, wasn't it, about our economics teacher decided she was new, and that was the first year in Sanger, but she decided we're not gonna wear pants to school, the girls weren't, you know, and we thought she lost her mind, because, so, I guess it went through. Did it? Did we ever end up not being able to wear pants? I don't remember that we were.
We could wear them on Friday.
Oh, okay, so it was compromised. But I think we were so mad over that. It just,
She said it didn't look right to wear an apron over pants. I don't think we could wear pants to school, from what I remember. I think we had to wear.
you know, we're not
Nobody could.
years. And Nancy, did you get a picture, one of those pictures to put in the book? Oh. Some of these ladies. Yeah, front row there. In Defiance, they decided it was their last day to be able to wear blue jeans and, or any other slacks. So they made, we got this wonderful picture of them, with their backs turned. I think they put that in the book, didn't they?
Maybe it didn't make the cut.
No, but maybe we could stop the press.
Well, we were just looking, Rosina, I think, we were looking at this picture over here before we started. And this is 1956, I think is when we decided what. See, we're all wearing, Pat has on pants, and Charlene has on pants. The rest of us have on dresses.
We wore dresses most of the time. I remember when I started in North Texas, we couldn't wear slacks.
No, we couldn't, no, we can't.
If it was real cold, you could wear them under your skirt, but when you got into class, you had to roll them up under your skirt. And that was such a nuisance. That's the rule. Now time change, you go there and see how they're dressed now, you wonder if they are dressed.
Yeah, Elizabeth, you were talking about the communist teacher. You know, it made me think, I could see that happening nowadays, a group of kids. But that was pretty brave back then.
Blazing. Boy, we gossiped about that, I can remember that. I mean, you talk, we really talked to them, we did not like that man. I mean, that's what I think they or that's what I call them.
I just know I ended up being his favorite person. I got quite a few whippings.
You got everybody.
Because eighth grade, I thought I was the top dog. I mean, you know, I was in the 8th grade.
You are in my book. When I was a kid, I went to my grandmother's every weekend. Talking about Sanger back then, you could be all over the place. I'd ride my bike, and Keita lived next door, and Jerry, Don, and Larry taught me to play marbles and Monopoly and all these games. And it was after I was an adult that I learned the real rules of Monopoly. I mean, but the three, well, and sometimes her, when she wasn't being the top dog, she would play Monopoly with us. And I can remember playing from like Friday and most of Saturday, and you know, I'd have to go home on Sunday, so we'd have to end the game. And Jerry Don usually had all the money, but I just idolized Keita. I just thought she was the greatest thing. And she had started dating Al, and my bedroom at my grandmother's faced her house. And I'd sit there and watch him come home.
Never know his lies were seen.
The night she got engaged, I guess she knew I was watching, because as soon as Al left, she came running over to the window. But it was a fun time growing up in the 50s and 60s. Well, I guess, anybody have anything else?
I want to make one comment about the book. You've already, they're all tired of hearing it anyway. But Kona and Helen and I have learned a great deal in this last year putting this book together, and I hope that you will enjoy it. And they have promised us, for whatever it's worth, that it will be out the week, about the middle of September, just after homecoming.
Right.
Kona had wrote them a trying to, say, but we really need it by homecoming, and they said, sorry.
And we got it in 4 months early. They had offered us, 8% of the net proceeds, and about 5 weeks before we sent it, they came back and said, we'll give you 10% if you'll send it in by April the 12th. So I started coming up twice a week, and we were meeting twice a week, and we got it into, was it 8?
I think, the 5th. Well,
Yes.
we mailed it the 5th, and he got there.
Yeah. So it's there, and when they said it would be out right after homecoming, I sent an email telling them how much more beneficial to them as well as us and the citizens would be to get it out in time for homecoming, but they just said they couldn't do it, so maybe they'll surprise us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I guess if we don't have